You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Indeed, the very last show on WIBC from the Emmis building in Indianapolis. We'll get to that stuff later. If you're joining us from a syndication partner on a different radio station, believe me, we will get to that entire spaghetti bowl later because we've got an even worse pile of news to dig into. And that is, whenever you have a series of elections, like the Democrat who ended up winning in Miami, people start asking bellwether questions as you head into the midterms. What do voters think right now? What do voters see when they look around the United States? And everyone immediately sticks their head up the nearest standing ostrich and doesn't answer the question correctly. So we're going to do that here. Voters pay attention to two things. Number one, they pay attention to what is around them. And number two, they pay attention to what their officials say about what is around them. And what is going on around a lot of voters around the country this evening is a lot of disgusting, crime-ridden chaos. And it is chaos that is fueled by some of the comments and encouraged rhetoric from their officials. What kind of stuff am I talking about in specific? Minnesota is getting worse, but really the anti-law enforcement attacks in this country are getting worse as a whole. So we have situations like those in Duluth, Minnesota today, in which individuals are now swerving their vehicles to try and clip police officers as they drive by. Here's a video of that. So you see the obviously the officer yell because the car clipped him in the shoulder. A red kind of light SUV, kind of a crossover kind of a thing, drives off. Again, just very, very casually. Duluth Police Department. This is becoming a norm in American society, and it is a truly terrible thing. It's not just, however, a boiling down to attacks on police officers. There are also cases in which state governments, local officials, are fully endorsing and backing illegal immigrants and violent criminals over American citizens, overtly, blatantly. Of course, we talked about yesterday in Illinois, J.B. Pritzker letting illegal immigrants who had committed very violent crimes back out onto the streets to protect them from ICE. Now in California, a new scandal over state tuition systems being set up to favor illegal immigrants over California citizens.
California Democrat politicians have now enacted a new rule that treats citizens worse than illegal immigrants and gives discounts for tuition to illegal immigrants over citizens here in the United States. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California and a California state representative, and I think this is completely unfair and offensive. I was contacted last week by a student wishing to enroll in a California university.
Doesn't sound strange. California guy wants to enroll in a California university. Makes sense.
And they were told that they have to pay tens of thousands of dollars more in tuition than if they were an illegal immigrant.
That should be a red siren. That should be a major red siren. And by the way, we can link to the rest of this story later. It is in fact true that in California, you get additional state-level subsidies and grants if you are an illegal immigrant that wants to enroll in a California educational institution, rather than if you are a citizen. There used to be in-state and out-of-state tuition expenses. Now there's a third category. If you're an illegal in California, you get boatloads more money, tens of thousands of dollars more towards your tuition than an in-state California resident. People notice this. That's not something that you can just get on TV and campaign and lambast. Those average stories of people on the left consistently choosing illegals over Americans, it's pretty obvious. And it doesn't help that you have the menopausal, angry crew over on the left, guys and gals, awkwardly enough, who are following around law enforcement, whether they be in the National Guard or whether they be in ICE, and just scream incoherently at them. Here's one video the guy posted proudly in which he's bragging about how he's, just harassing National Guardsmen outside of Union Station in Washington, D.C.
All right, guys, what's up? You guys understand the Constitution. I'm sure you understand the Posse Comitatus Act. What are you guys doing here?
The Posse Comitatus Act has nothing to do with being a National Guardsman on federal deployment on federal property in a federal city at all. Nothing at all to do with that anyway.
Sergeant, have you heard of Captain Dhillon Blaha or Staff Sergeant Demi Palachek?
I have not heard of Captain Sergeant Sonny D or Sergeant Major Special Corporal Baja Blast at any time in recent memory. Also, I don't think just shouting out the names of random soldiers or guardsmen or airmen or sailors means anything. Have you heard of the Muffin Man? The Muffin Man? No, that's not how that works here.
What about you, Private? Do you understand that you're currently violating the Constitution?
They're not.
That you're currently following illegal orders?
They're not.
Are you aware of that fact, son?
The dude sounds like he's about 19 years old, and he's addressing these other two as son, which is just weird.
Where are you guys from? West Virginia? Or is that Arizona? That looks like an Arizona patch, huh? You guys are smart. You're not going to talk. F*** off. What are you going to do? What are you going to... You can't tell me to back up. This is a public sidewalk. I am more than 3 feet away.
So, okay, he starts cussing out the troops, which is always great. Nothing like saying, oh, I'm a respectable individual, where, you begin by cussing out the troops. Doesn't he at one point, demand if either of those two have seen combat? Something like that?
Yeah, based on one of the badges on one of the uniforms of the officer, he starts questioning the combat history of the individual, and then when another person comes to defend the two National Guardsmen, he tells them to back off, B-word, I'm a combat vet.
Okay. Yeah, nifty. And then you have, of course, the crazy ladies running around the country who are yelling at law enforcement whenever. Here's a fine lady on the left who is screaming at ICE agents for dining in a Chipotle because she's mad they are eating in a Mexican restaurant. Ah, yes, nothing says authentic Mexican cuisine like Chipotle.
You don't intimidate me.
I'm not. No one's intimidating you.
Yeah. Well, no, that was your attempt.
No, we just
But you don't. You don't. People are terrorizing our city and then coming into Mexican restaurants.
Chipotle, Mexican restaurants, Abuela in the back there cooking the quesadillas.
And yeah, people are concerned. People are concerned. Well, go eat somewhere else. You racist motherfucker. Go eat somewhere else. Go to Cracker Barrel.
Go to Cracker Barrel. The intelligentsia on the left is alive and well. People notice this. People notice these clowns and who it is that they support. There are a lot of other crimes right now in the country that are, again, people notice in their local community. People getting targeted mail attacks, targeted social media attacks, people essentially calling or messaging or sending mail to others and threatening them, saying you're going to end up just like Charlie, sending like the rapper of gushers, saying he gushed from the neck, you're going to gush from the neck. They think this is their big winning strategy. The people around the country, how you react to those around you impacts people's views of you. That is a crucial thing right now. Because what you are being told by Democrat officials over on the left, what you are being told by the people who is leading this pack of individuals, this fine crew of academics and scholars, is that this is necessary. This is necessary. We have to act like this, producer Nick. We have to get out there and scream and yell and assault law enforcement and commit attempted murder and body slam federal agents and all this other stuff. Why? Well, because you see, it's all that Trump and his Nazi authoritarian super state. After all, that's what Minnesota State Senator Zainab Mohammed, who was born in Somalia, because the Trump administration has put ICE agents on the ground and has allowed federal agencies to investigate fraud. Apparently, this means Trump is an authoritarian super Nazi.
I think America right now, we are in a defining moment in our state and in our country to stand up to what is happening. And what we're seeing is an actual authoritarian government take place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what that is. Yeah, this kind of enabling action, if people don't think that there are voters in this country who are watching this around them and are not disgusted by it, again, you do in fact have your head up the nearest ostrich. And that seems to be the case with a lot of these officials leading them. Unfortunately, though, the radio crew, you guys have to head to commercial. We're going to continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. Now on like a 30,000 foot kind of a view, you have guys like James Carville, who are clapping with glee over the Democrat mayor now elect winning in Miami and thinking, oh, this is it. The walls are closing in. They've trotted out that old soundbite, you know,
I believe this is the beginning of the end.
I do too.
It's really the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
You know, the walls are closing in the beginning of the end. Here's James Carville, former Clinton campaign manager, who's making the case, it's all over, pack it up, Trump. See, there's a lady yelling at guys in Chipotle, it's over.
But understand this. People are seeing this and people are voting on this. Understand that. He's not getting away with it. He's caught on to. He's not getting away with it. He's paying for it. And he's going to continue to pay for it. And we got to stop looking at him as some kind of political Svengali or political Houdini or anything like that.
I love how he says we have to stop looking at Trump as though he's a unique political figure. They have been calling him Hitler. They haven't been saying, well, this Trump is rather unique and kind of impressively, strangely unique in the American political system. They've been calling him a Nazi and threatening violence on anyone who follows the executive branch of the United States constitutional authority. But he's making the case here. Well, you see there, sailor, actually, we got to stop being nice. Because that's what's been going on so far. The left has been so nice and kind and putting forth solutions to problems.
He's done. We just got to butter this toast and slice it and eat it. He's done. And he's done in Florida. He's done in Pennsylvania. He's done in New Jersey. He was done in Virginia. He was done in Mississippi. He was done in Georgia. He's done. It's over. You're a loser, dude. You're losing everywhere, and you're going to lose more because you, my friend, are a loser.
Okay, that's real special. Now, we go from there to over at the Senate, because at the Senate, you're thinking, all right, there are some problems right now. Maybe there are things that voters are unhappy about, things voters would like to see done. So the Senate minority leader, who's talked a lot about things that need to be done, he's going to come forward and he's going to make some very key announcements. He's going to level the boom here. Schumer's going to show a little bit of leadership and make some proposals.
Mr. President, the first stop on Donald Trump's so-called affordability tour was a train wreck. Last night's speech in Pennsylvania was supposed to kick off a new messaging campaign on affordability, but all it did was expose how Donald Trump simply doesn't get it. Anyone listening to Trump's speech could see he simply doesn't get what people are struggling through. He's trapped in his billionaire bubble.
Ah, that's the secret. Schumer comes out and says, well, the problem is that Trump is all for his billionaire buddies. And that's the problem. So the Democrats come out and say that Trump doesn't believe in affordability. And so instead of proposing ways to make the economy affordable, say, all right, here's Trump's package. Here's why you need to elect us in 2026, because we've got some proposals for affordability. There's a little dirty secret that people don't like to admit when it comes to polling data. Baked into the cake is that voters innately understand that Republicans may not always be stellar on every economic policy and issue, but the Democrats are stage 4 cancer. Republicans, maybe the policy isn't like the most amazing thing ever crafted since Shakespearean works, but what the Democrats are bringing to the table is hot trash. The name of the game for midterms is getting people out, making the frame of where we could go. And Republicans have a pretty open runway to provide opportunities. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, especially with some of the news from today. But right now, the key contender against Donald Trump, Gavin Newsom, yeah, this ain't happening.
I think Trump is one of the most destructive presidents and human beings in my lifetime. I think this republic is at real risk, this country being unrecognizable. And I have no patience for people that want to indulge it. I can't stand the crony capitalism. I can't stand all these supplicants that are sitting there bending the knee to this president. I can't stand the universities that have done that, the law firms that have done that.
We're going to talk about those law firms and universities in a second. So far, it seems the strategy is just yell that Trump is an authoritarian, ignore everything else, ignore every other policy, and simply say anyone that follows federal and constitutional law is evil. And he finishes with saying, I'm not going to be able to look at my son. His son, by the way, is a conservative. We'll get to that in just a minute. We got a lot more of this. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. On the outset, again, one would believe that amid a series of problems that voters are facing, you'd have some solutions. You'd actually have some things out here that are ready to go. And so far, there are two groups in this country. Right now, you have the Republicans who are actually putting forward some policy, who are delivering some victories. And then you have the crew, which is not just, mitigated, relegated to the left, be angry. They don't even need reasons to resist bravely, as they say. You now have congressmen and congresswomen, some of whom I've never heard of, I've certainly never heard speak before, that are coming out of the cave today announcing articles of impeachment. Against who? For what, you may ask? Well, Representative Haley Stevens, who you've never heard of from Michigan, has now come out to announce she's going to impeach Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Why? I've watched this video like 3 or 4 times now. I cannot understand what she thinks are the misdemeanors that Kennedy has committed. Here you go.
RFK Jr. has got to go. Today, I introduced articles of impeachment to remove him from office. RFK Jr. has turned his back on science, on public health, and on the American people. Under his watch, families are less safe. Healthcare costs are skyrocketing.
Yeah, very, very dramatic. I love like the articles that are just opinion articles. I don't like RFK. Again, he is the first health secretary that we have had who's been able to get dyes which are incredibly unpopular with the American people out of the foods. He has imposed stricter standards on a number of things. He's reintroduced and reopened old studies that there was a suspicion of p-value manipulation, of other issues, things like that. I mean, the weirdness of RFK Jr.'s, the goofy nonsense out of this, I'm just not buying it.
And life-saving research, including right here in Michigan, is being gutted. RFK Jr. is the biggest self-created threat to our health and safety. I cannot and I will not stand by while one man dismantles decades of medical progress. Enough is enough. And that
all of the emotion of a dead horse statue.
is why I'm pushing to impeach RFK Jr., to hold him accountable and to protect the health, safety, and future.
So she doesn't actually have anything he should be impeached for. She says, I'm going to impeach him to hold him accountable. Sweetheart, that's not how the impeachment process works. That's not what it's for. That's not what it's about. I'm sorry. That's not what comes out of that function. You see the same thing with Sri Tanadar. He comes out and he says, I am impeaching Pete Hegseth. And why I'm impeaching him is because I do not like him. Here you go. Sri Tanadar.
Hello, this is Congressman Sri Tanadar. Today I introduced articles to impeach Secretary Pete Hegseth for murder and conspiracy to murder and reckless and unlawful mishandling of classified information.
Okay, so the last one, again, the Pentagon, the Department of War, in the investigation found he didn't mishandle classified information because Pete Hegseth determines what is classified in communications coming in and out of the Pentagon. That would be number one. Number two, murder. That's not how that works. That's not how United States law works. We are not subject to the Geneva International Law. And again, it is not murder to kill foreign actors who are trafficking narcotics. No, I'm afraid not there, Chief.
Since day one, Secretary Hegseth has disgraced that once proud office that he holds, from issuing orders to kill everybody on board a small boat with no evidence of any wrongdoing, to launching a follow-up strike.
Okay, so he's making things up. He's citing reports that have been debunked already. I do love that they're just a boat. Yeah, sure, it had, modified like 4 or 5 outboard motors, tanks on the boat, not a fishing pole in sight. Nothing at all that suggests these are just innocent young fishermen. But that's what he's going to roll forward with. This is what they're focusing on. This is the strategy. This is the tactic. Voters from here to everywhere are very well aware. This is all they've got. This is it. And they're launching new campaigns off the back of this. That's what's truly weird about this. They're launching brand new campaigns. We've already talked a little bit about Jasmine Crockett's new bid for the Senate. she, again, does not have anything that is a proposal for the American people. She has nothing she's going to try to do in the Senate. She just gave a junior hire a Motorola Razr 3 and said, film me sitting next to a rapper. I'm not joking. This is the brand new Jasmine Crockett campaign. I thought it was bad enough when they brought the rapper up on stage at the announcement event. Now they're doing like Kamala Harris brat campaigns when they can't even afford like celebrities. So here you go.
She ain't never scared and she ain't never been. Who else willing to go toe to toe against the president?
So again, for those who are listening and not watching, there is the guy sitting in what looks like a doctor's office waiting room in just some, like, I don't know, basic chairs that you'd find in a waiting room. You know what I mean? Like the stackable chairs. He's not sitting in one chair or the other. He's like sitting between two chairs. And then in the middle of his rap, Crockett just comes up and sits looking the other way and disinterested. This is the ad. This is it. This is what Crockett's going to do for you as senator.
I can't wrap my head around someone who votes Republican. She advocate for feeding kids. They protect the ones touching them. Trump invading his own country with an army. What a joke. We remember Pearl Harbor by illegally bombing boats.
Yes. There you go. There's the platitudes. She wants to remember Pearl Harbor, not by the military doing what the military does. And then she thinks that the president has invaded his own country with the military, which the Supreme Court has allowed the National Guard to put down insurrections, unrest for, goodness gracious, I think we've lost count of how many times over the last 100 years. There you go. That's what they got. It's no surprise that when President Trump struts forward and is asked about Jasmine Crockett, his response is, she's an idiot.
They're saying, what's happening here? Well, she's a low IQ person. I can't imagine she wins. Maybe she'll get the Democrat nomination, but I think it's a gift to Republicans. She's a terrible representative. I watched her for the last 2 years. I can't even believe she's a politician, actually.
Radio crew, we have to send you guys over to commercial. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Hans von Spakovsky because, believe it or not, there's some pretty diggity-dong good news in counter to this. So we'll send y'all off to commercial and continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, the one more response, producer Nick. Just one more on Mike Johnson over in the House responding to Jasmine Crockett. You know, her brilliant campaign, and again, this as an excellent summary of everything the left is bringing to the table right now to the problems that voters have. Again, all of the crime, all of the inactivity, all of the frustrations. This is what we've got, and this is why Republicans are responding this way.
Yeah. Can I get your thoughts on Jasmine Crockett's run for Senate? What does it say about the state of the Democratic Party? And do you feel like there's a chance of winning at all?
I'm absolutely delighted that Jasmine Crockett is running for Senate in Texas. I think it's one of the greatest things that's happened to the Republican Party in a long, long time. She is the face of the Democratic Party. She and Mamdani. Good luck with that. I want her to have the largest, loudest microphone that she can every single day, and we look forward to having that election down there. We are going to.
Now, here's the thing. Right now, Republicans are at a crossroads. There are a number of things that are getting ready to happen or are already in the works. You have the presidential administration, which is putting forward, again, as we talked about when the election took place in November, a team of mavericks. He ran together. We're going to talk about that with Hans here in just a couple of moments here. When the president put forward a team and said, we're going to do this, 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 and this across the administration, some of those things were going to be immediate applicable things. Some of them were going to be things that required a little roasting in the oven, a little bit of cooking. And by and large, when the president comes through and removes not only problems that were caused by the Biden administration, but problems that have been a staple of, for example, the Department of Justice, all the way back through the Obama administration, when we look at some of the very strange kind of Bill Clintonian era military policies, we look at the Obama era State Department policies that involves kowtowing and bowing to Venezuela and Colombia and Cuba. When you look at the hyper racist loaded Department of Justice maneuvers that Eric Holder brought through the Obama years, now what you have is a very weird situation where you have essentially two Americas responding. You have people who are waiting to see the results, And then you have people who are saying, Donald Trump threatening Venezuela is like Hitler threatening Poland. Those people are licking their own elbows. Average Americans look at people who are engaging in those kind of conspiracy theories. A National Guardsman, that's just like the Nazis. Trump didn't, go bow down to the Chinese leadership. That's just like the Nazis. Wow, I can't believe Trump fired a member of the FTC. That's just like the Nazis. So right now, when you have people here in the United States who are, again, dealing with significant and serious issues, and the response is either insane screaming into the wall, or alternatively, again, the alternative kind of matters here, alternatively, actually providing some significant contributions, now you need between now and the midterms to actually dig into what these things are. Enter Harmeet, Dhillon, who we've already praised, of course, a lot on the show, and, of course, Attorney General Pam Bondi. What comes next is extremely important to the American people. We sat down with Hans von Spakovsky today. We're going to cut over to that interview, and then when we come back, just a litany of the greatest breaking news from today. A lot of it's still coming in. We're trying to make sure we get all of the up-to-date details on it before we give kind of the standard rulings. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back in just a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on The Daily Signal.
Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
She's done it. Harmeet Dhillon, Assistant Attorney General on Civil Rights. She has announced that disparate impact be gone. It is on its way out finally, and man, it has overstayed its welcome. So we go to the legal expert of legal experts, Hans von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation, because you may be out there going disparate impact. Tony, I hate corporate words. What are we talking about? Hans, give us a little bit of perspective here. Why does the words disparate impact mean so much to the United States?
Well, unfortunately, this is a frankly very dubious legal theory that has been used now for decades in a wrong way to violate the equal protection we're all entitled to. And what we're talking about is look, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1965, it banned racial discrimination. It basically put into force the equal treatment requirements of the 14th Amendment. And Title VI specifically says that if you're getting federal money for some kind of program, you can't discriminate on the basis of race. Well, unfortunately, the Justice Department decades ago issued these regulations in which they said, oh, you know what? You don't violate that statute just if you intentionally set out to discriminate, but also if whatever you do has a disparate impact. And what they're talking about is, let's say you have a totally neutral policy. Race is not considered, but for some reason, it affects members of one race more than others. Well, then the Justice Department said, well, you're violating the law, and therefore your federal funding can get cut off. And can I give you an example of the absurdity of this?
Please, we are all about examples and receipts here on the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Okay, and that's why what the Justice Department did is so important and long overdue. In 2001, there was a Supreme Court decision. It was called Alexander versus Sandoval. And what happened was this woman sued the Alabama Department of Motor Vehicles, claiming disparate impact. Why? Because you could only take the driver's license exam in English. And she said that English only requirement meant that it had a disparate impact on people who don't speak English. And therefore,
tell me, what language are the road signs in Alabama?
They're in Southern. I'm sorry, they're in English.
Y'all better exit next.
Right.
Well taken. Sorry, please continue.
But look, the point is she said this violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act because it had a disparate impact on people who didn't speak English. Now, fortunately, the Supreme Court, Justice Scalia, said, no, Title VI only prohibits intentional racial discrimination. But the Justice Department never changed its regulations. They kept this disparate impact provision in there. And now finally, the Justice Department has said, no, that's no longer going to be the way we enforce the law.
So just as a manner of receipt keeping here, there really is a huge decision by the Department of Justice to roll back some of these because some of the bigger cases in our nation's history, Griggs versus Duke Power in 1971 said that Duke Power was discriminating against black people, even though there was nothing that showed Duke Power was actually going out of their way to discriminate against black people and signing up for energy services. The Albemarle Paper Company versus Moody in 1975, the Supreme Court held that, well, I mean, once a plaintiff shows that there was disparate impact, the company has to prove they're innocent, which is wild. This precedent that stood in this country where if someone says, I think this is racist, it's not that they have to prove you were racist. It's that you have to prove your innocence. Because obviously the only reason that the driver's test in Alabama would be in English is to exclude people who speak other languages. This kind of harebrained mental gymnastics really started ratcheting up, though, in the Obama years. And that's when the Department of Justice kicked it into nitrous. You were on the forefront of that at the time with boxing gloves on. Tell us about the Obama years throwing this harebrained mental gymnastics of, disparate impact racism into high gear.
Well, for example, that attitude really affected elementary K through 12 students, ruining their educational experience. Why? Because the Obama administration went in and said, if you discipline more, for example, black students than white students, if the ultimate numbers, at the end of the year are that you disciplined a greater percentage of black students than white students, why then that's disparate treatment and disparate impact, and you have violated the law.
Because you're clearly singling out black children, so as the administration said.
It didn't matter if, in fact, the reason for that was because perhaps those children actually had greater discipline problems than other kids. That didn't matter. It didn't matter what kind of discipline problems the school was experiencing. So what did that mean? The schools started changing what they did. They didn't want their percentages to be out of whack, and so they would keep disruptive students in classrooms rather than discipline them. So who did that punish? All the good students, of no matter what their race was. They had to be in class with these disruptive students who weren't disciplined. Why? Because they basically had to meet the quota system set up by the Obama administration. And that's what it was. It was a quota system.
So this is now going to shift into Trump 1 because Obama had all these practices, of course, not to mention the Civil Rights Division going after housing during the Obama years. I think at Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs versus the Inclusive Communities Project back in 2015. Right. Now Trump 1 gets in, and we're looking for some major rollbacks of this at long last. And that first Department of Justice, they try to roll some stuff back, but it's a little slow and it's a little sluggish. And then Biden brings it right back. Then comes in Pam Bondi in the second administration. Why is this time, this Department of Justice, with what Bondi is doing, with what Harmeet, Dhillon are doing, why is this different?
Because the leadership is different, plus the preparation is different. Look, Donald Trump came into office the first time. He appointed a lot of what I call retreads. Sure. People from prior Republican administrations who weren't interested in taking the kind of bold action needed to roll back a lot of these things. Plus, he just wasn't experienced in, look, he was a businessman. He didn't realize how much resistance he was going to get from the bureaucracy, the swamp, as we all call it. I actually think one of the best things that happened to him was losing that 2020 election. Why? Because it gave him 4 years to prepare and for his people to prepare for his second term. They came in and were doing things immediately, and we didn't have any of the kind of delays that we had in the first administration. Plus, the people who he's appointed are real loyalists and people who really want to roll back the bad things the federal government has done.
I think that's so understated. And it really, by the way, when I pointed out when Trump was elected, the team of mavericks he already had ready to go. He didn't just run as himself in 2024. He ran as a team. I mean, he was announcing his picks before the election took place and building this large tent that essentially their motto was, all right, that's it. That was the motto. And it was this idea in the first administration, this sludge that dragged everything down, to come in with a team of mavericks after 4 years of planning, of course, some of it with the Heritage Foundation, some of it with the America First Policy Institute, over 200 different organizations, state officials, federal officials, this massive movement of people that have come in and started digging through the rot, or you've called it this pushback, eternal pushback from the bureaucracy. Now to see the leadership coming in and righting decades of wrongs, and a Supreme Court that seems pretty equally willing. Producer Nick and I have talked about this quite a bit. It really appears that John Roberts and Clarence Thomas have axes to grind with these years and years of just disgusting SCOTUS decisions. I mean, Thomas himself has been on how many dissents in some of these cases that we've talked about? I'm not just trying to pull daisies out of concrete here. This is some naturally good news that, I mean, how long have we heard about the bakers getting harassed because they wouldn't bake the LGBTQ plus 2IA cake? This stuff's huge. Right.
And look, we just on Monday, December 9th, we had a case before the Supreme Court, Trump versus Slaughter, in which Trump, the first president in 90 years to challenge a very bad Supreme Court decision issued in 1935, in which the Supreme Court said that, Congress could set up all these supposedly independent agencies that actually carry out executive branch functions, and the president, he'll have no supervisory control over those organizations, and that's okay. And Trump has challenged that, as he should, because that was a bad decision. And like I said, no other president, certainly no other Republican presidents, ever challenged that.
It really is an important facet of a new administration to challenge why something is there. This worship of the status quo that has enshrined every single legal institution in our country. This idea that, it isn't killing us all actively, so therefore it must be fine. And ignoring those who are being targeted directly by these outdated old systems, or their bad actors using these old outdated systems against Americans. I wanted to bring it back really quickly, though, to Bondi and to Harmeet Dhillon just one more time here. Now that we have seen the DOJ roll back some of these roll back some of these longstanding procedures and policies, what do those two, Harmeet Dhillon and Pam Bondi, need to advocate for? What do they need to push for? What do they need to demand from Congress, or demand from the president's office, or demand from the judicial system, so that these changes are made permanent?
I think, the best thing that could happen is for Congress to pass a bill making it clear that only intentional discrimination is covered by the Civil Rights Act. It does not cover disparate impact. And in fact, disparate impact is a violation of the Civil Rights Act. That's very important. Now, that's Congress. But what Bondi and Harmeet Dhillon have got to do now is, remember, this has enormous effect, because it affects any program that receives federal money. Well, Tony, you and I know, look, every single government department, every single government agency, they dole out huge amounts of federal funds to not just private organizations, but local and state governments. And
like soft serve at a nursing home.
Yeah. What Bondi and Dhillon are now going to have to do is make sure that all of those programs at the state and local level that have been discriminating stop discriminating.
Mm-hmm. If the boom isn't leveled and those who are vehemently breaking said laws and going against legal practices and going against civil rights practice aren't not only caught, but then made an example of, hit with the full weight of the law. We've talked about this. I know you and I have talked about this on immigration, on those who are violating labor laws, hiring illegal immigrants, need to be made an example of so that it is made clear what happens when you break the law. 10 out of 10 stuff. Hans von Spakovsky, the legal mastermind himself over at the Heritage Foundation, who I know you're grinning from ear to ear at the excellent updates from the DOJ. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
All right. We've got a couple of things to get to in the breaking news sphere now. We have a statement from the President of the United States on, believe it or not, a pretty freaking cool oil tanker seizure. I know that normally that's not something that you look forward to. That's not something that may excite you in the news. Well, dear friends and listeners, may I just share? I'm just saying that there's some pretty good things. So we're going to bring the radio crew back from their commercial break. One final swing through with, may I say, some of the highest quality stuff we've had in a long time. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Don't y'all go anywhere.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast, where we have got even more quick news to get to, including a couple of serious breaking news reports. First of all, from today, Pete Hegseth did win in an appeals court report. They found that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, he can ban transgender troops from the military if he wants, because it turns out that mental illnesses do, in fact, not really make for a very good battle situation with soldiers, airmen, sailors, Marines. No. So that opinion has been upheld. Now, the Secretary of War did put forward what I have to argue a pretty funny little political comic, kicking out the dude in the dress, Hegseth. I always admire that kind of stuff, but that's a major victory for the Trump administration. It is
common sense.
Again, common sense indeed. Very, very much, very true. Now we get to some of the breaking updates. From what we've heard on the inside of the DNC, Democrats are really struggling because they have no idea what to do on the Obamacare subsidy stuff. They have no answers for it. Now that the Republicans in Congress, now that a lot of the investigators are looking into the situations regarding the Obamacare subsidies, the healthcare situation, they don't really have any answers for it. And I mean, they are open. They don't have any answers for it. Representative Sarah Miller, also known as Tim Miller from Delaware, one of the skirted dudes, was approached to ask about a couple of weird studies that have now come out suggesting that Obamacare is a mess and a half. And he just stuck his fingers in his ears and started saying la, la, la as quickly as he could.
Government watchdog group set up a number of fake accounts and discovered that 90% of Obamacare subsidies were actually granted without any documentation, no social security number, no income verification. What do you make of this, and why do you guys want to continue to extend a program that's clearly failed the American people, especially for another 3 years?
Well, I don't think the American people think that it's failed the American people, and that study, quote unquote, sounds like bull.
Well, it's right here. I actually have it.
Yeah, but it sounds like a bull study, not a bull methodology.
A bull study on a bull methodology. Ah, yes, that makes lots of sense. So again, they said, okay, there were fake accounts that were made. And they said, hey, give us money. And the Obamacare subsidy program gave them money, no documentation, no social security number, just said, here's your money, free money. Normally you have to defraud the entire population of Minnesota for that. And the Democrats' response is, oh, that must be a fake study. It's not true at all. That looks terrible. That just looks embarrassing, you know?
Yeah, now we're at the point where the Democrats know that the things that they're pushing, such as Obamacare, are such losing issues that their only response is that the criticism can't be true. We're at that stage now.
This brings us to the State Department news. So we're seeing the Department of Justice overhaul the Obama and Biden administration's policies on how racial discrimination is taken care of. We see a new overhaul. There's a new bill that's being put forward. Representative Pfluger, Senator Rick Scott, on an actual Obamacare alternative that isn't just pumping money into it awkwardly. And then last but not least, in the initial breaking news, we have updated information on a captured Venezuelan oil tanker. So the president made this announcement earlier today. It's a major escalation, the tensions that are rising between the United States and Venezuela.
It's been an interesting day from the standpoint of news. As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people.
When you look at the Trump administration and the current environment, to actually move forward, we have to look at why the tanker was seized. This is a major change for the State Department. What's up?
I just love how he takes the win, but also has to go, largest one ever seized. Has to add in the extra
They
cherry
said the
on
Edmund
top.
Fitzgerald was the biggest, but this tanker was truly huge.
I mean, yeah, obviously, very Trump
makes
there.
the Titanic look small.
Here's the catch here. So first of all, for those who are watching the live stream, you can actually see the footage of the United States forces seizing the oil tanker. Here's why this is a win for the Trump administration. During the Obama years, and again during the Biden years, there was this kowtowing to bad actors on the international stage, in which there would be someone like Venezuela or Cuba or Colombia or a European power that acted poorly, like, for example, Russia marching into Ukraine, or in the Obama administration, Russia marching into the associative territories that it marched into. And the Democrat idea would just be to say, okay, well, America's like been bad or whatever, so we're going to be really, really nice and not do anything. The Trump administration is saying, no, absolutely not. And here's why in this situation, that is a major change and a win for the Trump administration. That boat from Venezuela was heading towards Cuba. The idea that Venezuela gets to trade with the communist dictatorship of Cuba in order to move past all of these, what is quickly becoming a deteriorating series of situations for Venezuela based on their own narco economy, Marco Rubio is setting a new stage of foreign policy that is not only blowing up narco-terrorist boats, and by the way, not only setting a series of expectations for Venezuela, but also for Colombia, because the president of the United States also made it clear that if the Colombian president doesn't stop doing illegal crap, he's next.
We have 3 countries sending drugs to the U.S., Mexico, Venezuela, and Colombia. And you talked to the president of Mexico, you already talked to Nicolas Maduro. Have you considered talking to the president of Colombia, who you called a drug leader?
No, I haven't really thought too much about him. He's been fairly hostile to the United States, and I haven't given him a lot of thought. He's going to have himself some big problems if he doesn't wise up. Colombia is producing a lot of drugs. They have cocaine factories that they make cocaine, as you know, and they sell it right into the United States. So
Again, there's this weird libertarian idea of foreign policy where other countries are allowed to make bombs and ship them into your country because, well, they have national sovereignty. And then there's the United States approach where we might find a drone, firing something into your country. You don't get to make that crap and send it here. How about no? Oh, but you can hit an innocent. Shut up. No, that is a win for the American people. According to the polling data, the reason that Trump is trending upwards right now is for that and that alone. Now, if you'll pardon me for a quick second to the national audience, I have the honor of saying something to the local Indianapolis audience. We introduced this show by saying, welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. That is the station that gave us our start. That was first a small side project radio show. Tonight is the very last night that 93.1 FM WIBC in Indianapolis is operating out of the Emmis building, where it has been since 1998 in Indianapolis. WIBC as a radio network has been around since 1938. It has been delivering a ton on talk news as the friendly voice of Indiana since the 80s. And to be a part of such an incredible crew, of course, Tony Katz in the morning, Kendall and Casey, Hammer and Nigel, the excellent crews from over the weekend, like the Home and Garden side of things. Allison, your excellent work over there on the board. It is a truly wonderful thing to be part of the most successful radio station in Indiana that gave us our break and allowed us to syndicate. To Matt Hiblin, to David Wood, to all of the excellent engineers, we're truly grateful for y'all. So as we round up the radio side of coverage here at 7:57 and 30-ish seconds, I didn't listen when Allison told me what second count we were going to this evening. Sorry, Allison. It really is something that is near and dear. A lot of great men in radio broadcast in Indianapolis. We were one of the first stations to syndicate Rush Limbaugh. Of course, love him or hate him, Mike Pence did in fact sit in the broadcast chair over on WIBC for a good long while. So this is the final broadcast out of 93 WIBC in the Emmis building. We'll see you when our regular programming begins tomorrow. To the radio crew, I'm Tony Kinnett here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC.
Hammer here for my friends at AAA. The holidays.
See, then there's the commercial line that started. Normally we cut that off for you guys. Okay, back to the live stream thing. Sorry, it's a pretty cool honor to be asked to close out the station coverage for one particular station. So, producer Nick.
Yeah, it truly is an honor to have any association with Rush at all. So very cool.
And getting to work with cool? Rob Carson as well. Now his former writer, excellent guy as well. Sorry, please continue.
What else is very cool, in regards to the boat seizure, oil boat, as we had covered a bit earlier yesterday and the day before, the posturing of Venezuela and the military capabilities that they have.
Oh, yes.
I was wondering if you wanted to speak on the importance of gasoline and oil to any military, period.
So an army runs on its stomach. And that means that you have to feed your troops. That also used to mean you had to feed your horses. Well, there are other things that, boats are no longer powered by wind. And it just so happens that running on your stomach, the logistics means you have to be able to feed your army and you have to be able to move and protect them, which means fuel, oil to keep those mechanics coming and rolling smoothly. And of course, the parts to replace things that go wrong quite often. And if Venezuela, which is a major fuel exporter, has no economy but the drugging economy, Maduro's failed since 2011 when Obama let him take power and encouraged the socialist revolution in Venezuela. It has been a consistent failure time and time again. And back when Bernie Sanders was promising that the socialist success was going to be amazing, it turned out to be a massive suckfest for the entire population of Venezuela and has been a drugging empire that has killed millions of Americans. And, by the way, because Americans are deeply concerned still with the fentanyl problem in the United States, there are a series of wins that are for the first time, because it takes a while for some of these things to kick in and become effective, because of the Trump administration's strong policies in the Caribbean, in the Gulf of America, and along the U.S. southern and northern border. For the first time, not only is fentanyl becoming less potent, like the fentanyl that's making it into the United States because there's less of it, but there are also fewer fentanyl deaths for the first time since we've started tracking this upward trend of fentanyl-related deaths. Here's the Fox News report on this.
Encouraging sign in the fight against fentanyl. The DEA says pills seized by their agents are seeing a dramatic decline in potency. And President Trump may be the one to thank for that. Our Fox News senior correspondent Alicia Acuna has got more. She's in Denver now. And Alicia, these are some staggering reductions.
John, this is jaw-dropping data from the Drug Enforcement Administration. National lab test results on illegal fentanyl pills show a drop in the lethal potency of pills on the street from 76% 2 years ago to 29% today. The DEA says it's because the Trump administration is all hands on deck.
We are targeting the global supply network of precursor chemicals that go from China into Mexico. And if we can impact that supply making its way to the Mexican cartels, there's less precursor chemicals available for them to make this product.
Now, wait a minute. I was told that if there was any kind of a war on drugs, not just, oh, drugs are illegal and that'll fix everything, but if the government actually prosecuted the source, then that was just going to be murder and terrible and evil and awful, and there's no way to win the war on drugs. But here I am seeing definitive proof that with the number of total fentanyl deaths decreasing and the amount of fentanyl in the after the precursor chemicals create the fentanyl, the actual drug itself, there are smaller amounts of that in each pill. Well, hang on a second here. It sounds like a pretty big win for me. I'm just saying, what I'm seeing right now is a delivery on a promise. And there's nothing so far the left has been able to push that can besmirch that to the American average person. The polling data shows it. Producer Nick?
Yeah, and thinking about Rand Paul, he continues to suggest that the boats that are being taken out are just civilians on vacation.
Rand Paul has said that just quite often. Yes, absolutely.
So now when we see reports like this, we then get, of course, other than common sense, a semblance of knowing that that's not true.
When the cartels are posting videos saying, oh, hey, we're hiring again, you have to ask, well, why are you hiring again? What happened to the last guys? And then when you see the number of kilos of fentanyl making it into the United States are dropping rapidly, when the number of fentanyl-related deaths are dropping rapidly, when the precursor chemicals that are being shipped across are going down, again, what I'm seeing is a series of wins. What I'm seeing is a closed border. What I am seeing is the president delivering on removing the DEI garbage that was prosecuting Americans from the Department of Justice. And believe it or not, the economy itself is really starting to, well, let me put it this way.
On tips and overtime, there's a max reduction for tips is $25,000. So imagine if you are somebody who uses tips as part of your salary or to make your living, that will have an impact. The senior deduction, you have to be 65 years old. It phases out at $75,000. But again, for people who are saying gas prices, which are lower, but that food prices are higher, that it's hard for them, that might help as well. There's a no tax on car loan interest. Now, that can be helpful, but what might be even more helpful is what they announced last week, which is they're doing away with some of the EPA rules on these car and fuel mileage. That actually will help bring the cost of cars down, probably even more. And then a child tax credit expansion. That's very bipartisan. A lot of people like this. A lot of people love to see good economic news, but I would say Josh Holmes, our next guest here. Josh, you know communications very well. To me, economic.
Now we'll let the ruthless crew hopping in to handle on that particular side over on Fox. I do want to make it clear, right now what we are seeing is the president of the United States moving in with a series of tax breaks and moving in with a series of regulatory cuts. Those are going to be the biggest things he can do, and the biggest thing that his administration can do, and the biggest things that Congress can ratify and do. Couple that with the interest rates now being cut because inflation is continuing to go down. This is something that Americans are paying attention to. Again, the polling data right now shows Trump moving north on the approval rating side. It's since really about the start of December, and it's because a lot of these things have started to be made manifest. Here's the interest rate announcement.
At today's meeting, the committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate by a 0.25 percentage point to 3.5 to 3.75%. This further normalization of our policy stance should help stabilize the labor market while allowing inflation to resume its downward trend toward 2% once the effects of tariffs have passed through.
These are a series of actionable things that will continue to lower the cost of certain goods after the Biden inflation. And for the concerns about the tariffs, what we have seen so far is that in a negotiated sense, tariffs are very effective. Now, as to whether they get to stick around long on broader goods is up to the Supreme Court, who's hearing those arguments now, which again, we've said Trump's in a reverse catch-22 here. So what big policies Trump is getting ready to swing through that aren't going to improve the economy in 2026, which is supposed to be the Achilles heel for Republicans? No data is currently shown. The best I've heard is that Trump is subsidizing farmers, which, I mean, Trump has done always. That's exactly what Trump does, that he subsidizes farmers. Producer Nick.
I think just as much as these individual stories that we're sharing stand alone as huge triumphs for the Trump administration, I think it's really telling, as we were covering earlier, the Democrats are kind of running out of options on how to prevent the winning. We moved away from, Jerome Powell actually mentioned it quite a bit today, the government shutdown and its impacts, And now we have a continued winning, and now to the point of Jerome and the Fed being forced to reduce the interest rates.
So there's a comment that I do want to address rather quickly here, because I think it's a really good kind of on-the-ground Politico-style point here. So a guy over on the YouTube chat named Skydog says, but those things don't help the everyday person, and that's who votes. Au contraire, lowering the interest rates, lowering inflation does in fact help the average American voter. It helps the average person, because as the cost of fuel and things go down, goods do in fact become cheaper. Right now, what you're looking at in the form of the United States here with the economy, the Supreme Court is, I'm just going to break it to y'all, they are getting ready to strike down a majority of Trump's tariffs, which is going to create a system of greater importing into the United States. If they do keep Trump's tariffs, the economy, which seeks more than anything else stability and normalcy, will it adapt and adjust. And right now what we have seen is that when accounting for inflation, wages rising, wages have risen more quickly than the inflationary increase of prices and goods at the grocery store. So at the end of the day, what we're looking at here is a situation in which the Trump administration, all they have to do is deregulate, lower taxes, and continue to provide economic opportunity where they can through negotiation, like through Marco Rubio, or again, through kind of strong arm tactics abroad for negative actors, for example, in the South Pacific. And you do get a recipe for a good economy. Now, it is a gamble. It absolutely is a gamble to perform an economic maneuver in which you have to wait for the turkey to be done. Absolutely, it's risky. So far, though, the gloom and doom that was predicted, and let's be real, there was serious gloom and doom that was predicted, that we were all going to be destitute, Great Depression to electric boogaloo right here, right now, and it didn't happen. Now, have we seen the economic gold flowing down from the mountain like in the days of old? We have not yet seen that either. What we are seeing, though, are trend lines. Trend lines matter. I was having this conversation with producer Daniel early on in the show. Right now, the trend lines show that the Trump administration's approval rating is climbing higher. It is. And the reason that it's climbing higher is things on the economic side are starting to show fruit. And we see this in the consumer confidence heading into the holiday season is an excellent example for this, by the way. Right now, on the international side, the Trump administration is providing fruit, is producing victories on the international side of things, both on the negotiation strategistic side and also on the stopping wars and kind of the balance of power situation side. On delivering for the United States in reforming federal agencies, reforming the Department of Homeland Security and closing the border, beginning the illegal immigration deportation processes. Those are succeeding. In moving forward in changes to the FDA, and moving forward in changes to the Department of Education, and moving forward in deregulating the Department of Energy, and moving forward in restricting the Environmental Protection Agency and all of the Obama-era nonsense, and removing a lot of the Biden-era fuel economy nonsense, and changing how the Department of Transportation is run. These are actionable wins that American people, according to the polling data, again, I'm here to talk to you, many of whom are here because you know something about politics. You follow politics, you follow the news. And right now, according to the polling data, there are Americans who are clearly responding to a particular set of wins the Trump administration is delivering on outside of the booming, major gold flowing down from the mountain, already here economy that was expected. And as the economy, right now, what you are seeing is the train beginning to pull away from the station. That's what you're seeing. Right here now, in the middle of Q4, the steam is coming from the pistons. The train is beginning to chug out of the station. It will pick up speed in 2026. It will. There's nothing right now that I've seen that is a major warning sign indicator that the entire economy is about to bottom out. Unemployment is not terrible. I've heard people trying to make much ado about nothing mountains out of molehills in the employment sector. Not seeing it. I'm trying to see people say that, oh, AI is going to collapse, we're all going to die. Not seeing this particular set of data either. Oh, grocery prices are exorbitantly expensive and Trump has made them more expensive. What I was promised, again, while groceries are still expensive, no, not in a totality that's huge. Right now, that is again, wages are continuing to increase. Some tariffs are flatlining out because Trump is getting what he wants on an international level. Now, from that side, I do want to point out one thing that's just really freaking cool. No, this is not like, maybe the biggest national, incredible, huge win that you would put up there next to winning World War II.
Sometimes you just gotta end off with just a win that's just so American.
this is something that's pretty cool. So the soon-to-be head of NASA, Jared Isaacman, along with Senator Tim Sheehy of Montana and retired Army Ranger Denman, just set a world record for the largest flag flown in freefall.
Yes, sir.
Bringing the record back to the United States. This is a pretty cool video. I just wanted to share it with you guys. It's pretty cool stuff. Producer Nick found it earlier today. So in October 5th, 2025, over Benghazi, Libya, skydivers set a world record, and the American flag was no longer the largest flag ever to fly in freefall.
We will make America great again.
63 days later, 3,200 square feet of the American flag. That's just pretty stinking cool.
That warms the heart of any American.
It absolutely does. Look at that. And that was on December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, America taking the world record back. That is a deeply American thing. The idea that if, I'm sure you've heard that if the Chinese Aeronautics and Space Administration, whatever they call it, if they sent a man to the moon and they knocked over the American flag and planted the Chinese flag, would we immediately send up another American flag and knock it over and drill a tall American flag into the soil of the moon? You absolutely bet we would.
It's
10 out of
just
10.
great to know that Trump admin picks are unashamedly American.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There are things right now that I'm seeing, and a lot of like the grumbling and the bumbling and the mumbling, that when you look at the data, again, the idea of an American spirit, again, kind of being revitalized, a pride in the country, instead of a walking around bumbling and shuffling and moaning and crying. Yeah, I'm seeing the good stuff there. So that said, we'll be back tomorrow with more of the news and nonsense of the day. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.